Longtime Mensa Bulletin language columnist Richard Lederer is the author of more than 50 books about language, history, and humor, including his best-selling Anguished English series and his current titles, A Treasury of Halloween Humor and A Treasury of Christmas Humor. Dr. Lederer has been named International Punster of the Year and Toastmasters International's Golden Gavel winner. Tonight, Richard Lederer will offer a treasury of insights into the feats, fates, families, foibles, and firsts of our American presidents. The title of Dr. Lederer's presentation is Fascinating Facts About Our Presidents. Dr. Lederer.
Thank you so much. I just want to put these up because they're kind of a Mensa thing. My 51st and 52nd books stop me before I write again. I don't know when that's going to happen, but these are two books that are just out, first editions, and I would love to save you your holiday shopping. And I don't know what you all have in terms of accessing this, but at the end, we'll have my website and so on, and you can get them there. And they're $13, and $8 will go back to our scholarship fund. And here's my point. Our scholarship fund, we had over 300 applicants this year, has been largely fueled or funded by my poker tournament each month that I run. And a certain portion of that goes to our scholarship fund. Needless to say that since February, note both R's pronouncing, we haven't been able to do that, so we're really hurting. And if you place an order through PayPal, through my email address, which I'll have that up, I will apply 8 of the 13. And you're wondering, how is that possible? It's because after 50 brick and mortar published books, guess what? These are self-published, because you really, unless you are a towering celebrity, and I am far from that, you really can't sell seasonal books to a brick and mortar publisher. So I went self-publishing, and boy, did I learn a lot about the ginormous, humongous advantages of self-publishing and the ginormous, humongous disadvantages of self-publishing. So later on, for any of you thinking about your memoir or your novel, feel free, because we're on, thanks to Cindy. I think, Cindy, you said the limit was midnight. We can stay till, but seriously, I'm just happy to do it. And hey, I'm probably the oldest guy in this group, but to give you young ones a hope, the artist is 91. You see his covers. I am 82. And the marbles seem to be staying in the skull. And 50, Jim McLean, as you see at the bottom, 53 Halloween cartoons, black and white, of course, interior, and 51 for that. And know that more than half will go to a Mensa scholarship fund. That is San Diego Mensa. And you may have seen the advertisement in the Mensa Bulletin. There'll be another one, and then at the end of the year there won't. I will sign and inscribe. And if you know Rich Lederer, like today is going to be learning dressed up to have fun, you will find a whole bunch of things about Halloween and Christmas that you didn't know about. And I'll just mention for Halloween, it's our oldest and youngest holiday. Oldest, it's very pre-Christian, Celtic, some druidical aspects in it. So well BC, but it's our youngest because this is the 100th year. The first celebration in Anoka, Minnesota, and you'll read about that, and just all sorts of facts. And of course, in Christmas, even more. So moving along from that, and I'll get to that later. So here are our presidents, all XY chromosomes so far. And we live in a nation in which anybody can be president of the United States. And Jefferson, our third president, Nixon, our only California native, and just up the road from San Diego, about an hour on 5, depending on where you live, and FDR's successor, Truman. And my point, my friends, is that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can become president of the United States. We've had very handsome presidents. I'll bet you the first one you think of is Ronald Reagan, our only professional actor, interesting, and our only labor leader. He was president of SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and as such, his first votes were for the Democratic Party's Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was in 54 films and would have been in 55. And in those 54, in one of them, Hellcats in the Navy, he met his future wife, Nancy Davis, who became Nancy Reagan. He would have been in 55, but the director of The Best Man, a presidential campaign film, thought he didn't look presidential enough. John Kennedy, good-looking guy. Warren Harding, handsome fellow, not a terrifically successful president, but voted in part by women who were able to vote for the first time, who thought he looked very presidential. And that was a century ago. Franklin Pierce, a good-looking guy. Ugly, well, our ugliest, clearly, Abraham Lincoln. And I'll do more on that. But when a grouchy Democrat, Lincoln was the first Republican, accused him of being two-faced, he said, well, if I had two faces, you think this is the one I'd be showing to the world. We've had highly educated presidents. Woodrow Wilson, probably our second ugliest president, who mocked it, in a self-parody. PhD in political science, one of the great oxymorons, from Johns Hopkins University. But some, for example, Abraham Lincoln's successor from Tennessee, Andrew Johnson, no education except an apprenticeship to a tailor, and he wore only suits that he himself had handcrafted, made for himself. So that's the variety. Now, bar bet number one. Now, a little tricky here because I'm taking this from my column. We thought it would still work well in the Mensa Bulletin, which I've heard 100% of you read within one day of receiving it. But if you did, I sort of have to exclude you from these bar bets. But if not, just take a chance. And what have you got to lose if you're wrong, except your reputation and self-esteem in Central Florida Mensa? How many men have been president of the United States? How many men have been president of the United States? And you see them all here, so maybe that isn't so hard, but there's a little bit of a bend to this, a little bit of a parallax leap. Okay, so what I'll do here, and I can see, I know how this works, only 6 of you, well, 5, and I'm one of them, is anybody who got it right can put their hand up. Notice I just did singular or plural again, but I bet you it went right by you. So I'm betting that most of you said 45, because after all, Donald J. Trump, Thomas, I'll get to you, and is our 45th president. Thomas, can you hold up one hand and the other and tell me how many you thought there were? Because you said you didn't do that. Yes, you're right. Everybody see him. The answer is 44. Now, how can Trump be our 45th president, but only our 44th man? And the answer has to do with the 2 slides I'm pointing to. You're saying, are they identical twins? No, they happen to be the same guy, Grover Cleveland. Cindy, not Groover Cleveland, Grover Cleveland, somebody who tends to a grove. And what happened is he was elected our 22nd president. He ran for re-election and he won the popular vote, but he lost the Electoral College to Benjamin Harrison. Notice that name Harrison, who happens to be the grandson of William Henry Harrison. This guy lasted only 31 days. All of this, of course, in my book called Presidential Trivia. So he came in, and Frances Folsom, the young bride of Cleveland, said, "Don't move the furniture, we'll be back." And sure enough, Cleveland ran against his predecessor there and became our 24th president. And some mathematical illiterate counted Cleveland twice. So these aren't identical twins. These are the same guy. And it threw the math off by one. It's irremediable. We can't get it back unless there was some amendment that just, I don't know, erased it. But so 22 and 24. So Donald Trump is our 44th president, Barack Obama having been our 23rd. Now, here's a real Mensa question for you. Can you name two presidents of the United States, each of whom succeeded his successor? Two presidents of the United States, each of whom succeeded his successor. And again, of course, I can't see all of you, but if somebody knows this one, you're pretty sure you know the answer. I don't know whether we could.
I have a guess.
Although I can only see about four. And hey, you're gonna win. This is very difficult. Oh, did I just blank out? No, I didn't, because that horrid message came up. All right, I see a hand up for the woman. I don't see her name, but she's gorgeous, dark hair, and very exotic. Is she the woman at the bottom on my screen? Can you unmute her? Can you speak, miss?
She is unmuted. She can speak.
Okay, yes. Who were the two presidents, each of whom succeeded his successor?
All the presidents succeeded their successor except for George Washington.
No, they succeeded their predecessors, but they didn't succeed their successors.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a trick question. Sorry, yeah.
Well, it isn't really. However, I'm not beneath being tricky, and we'll get to those later, miss. Okay, so here's the answer. It's a real Mensa answer. Now, obviously, Grover Cleveland succeeded his successor because this gentleman succeeded Grover Cleveland and was succeeded by Grover, succeeded his successor. I think you'd all agree. This guy is obviously Cleveland's successor. But the answer is the second guy who succeeded his successor is Harrison. Because would you agree that Harrison was is Cleveland his successor? Yes, because he came after. So Harrison succeeded Cleveland, and Cleveland was, as soon as his successor, get A, B, and now you go A, B, your Mensans. I'm sure it's really clear. So I'm so pleased to be doing this because we, the world's greatest democracy, are woefully ignorant of our history, of our presidential history. We, the nation who And
I'm going to call him on his cell phone. Oh,
I saw a message that he has low bandwidth, if that's any help.
you hear me? Can you hear
Why
me
is
now?
he muted?
yeah, Richard, I just unmuted you. You lost your screen share,
Oh, you're right. Oh, boy.
and
Can you get me back on, love? Because Simone is gone.
let's see.
Because I don't see any green thing up. I'm so sorry, folks.
What's up?
You have to understand that Murphy was in. So I don't think we missed much. That 1/3 can't identify the century in which the Civil War was fought. Oh, there's that. Your internet connection is unstable. You can hear me though, right?
Yes, right now we can.
3/4 of respondents did do.
We lost you again, Richard.
From which America identified the first 4 presidents in order. I'm so sorry. I really apologize. I'm hitting the forward button and it's not going. Cindy, can you help me there?
Can you hit the forward arrow to the right?
That's what I mean. I'm hitting it. Try backwards, try up. Nope, it's not. That would be a disaster. Because everything seems to be fine. You are screen sharing.
Yeah, I can't take control of your computer without.
Oh no.
Let's-
Hit the down arrow.
I'll hit the down. Nope, up.
Click on the PowerPoint itself and then click down.
So they cannot identify the first 4 presidents in order, but I'll bet you all you can. You will. I'm going to put this chart up later and you're going to see some very interesting. Only 21% can identify the faces on Mount Rushmore. They are. Yeah, thank you for saving it when this project commenced. And of course, Abraham Lincoln. Whereas 52% of Americans can identify at least 2 members of the Simpson family, the cartoon Simpsons, an episode or a movie. I've seen every one. And see what I mean there. So there's Homer. Lisa, Maggie, and Bart. I'm almost sure Bart, the name was given first, the 2 middle letters, you get Brat. Can anybody hear? Well, you're muted, I guess. Now I was going to say name the dog and the breed, but no, we can't do it because you're muted. So we'll skip that part. Okay, another bar bet. Yes, Santa's Little Helper, a kind of a rescue from the Greyhound track. Santa's Little Helper, right? Okay, I want you to look at these 5 people. I think you can identify 4 of them. The fellow in the middle up top is Samuel Tilden. And what's interesting is all 5 ran for president, won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College. I'm sure you knew that about the bottom two. But Andrew Jackson, we think of as, 2 terms. In the election of 1828, the election was a complicated one because there weren't majorities for each of them. There were other candidates. 1876, Samuel J. Tilden versus Rutherford Burchard Hayes. And the most corrupt election in our history, he won the popular vote, but the ballot boxes were stolen or corrupted. A lot of ultimately the Senate decided, and he lost to Hayes. And I mentioned won the popular vote when he ran for a second term, but lost to his opponent, Benjamin Harrison. Al Gore, we know about, election of 2000, won the popular vote, and with a Supreme Court decision about Florida, lost the Electoral College. And Hillary Clinton, we certainly know, won the popular vote reputedly by 3 million, 2 million of which are from my state here, California, and but lost the Electoral College. But in addition to that, and here's your bar bet, there's one other that they share. There's something element, and again, because you're muted, I'll give you the answer, but there's something else they have in common. And it's obviously not gender because one of them is an XX chromosome. Okay, and the answer is all Democrats. It has never happened to a Republican. All Democrats. And there are various reasons in terms of how the Electoral College works. We are the only democracy in the world that has it like that. But of course, we are divided up into a bunch of states, and the Electoral College was in part because of that reality. Okay, what 2 presidents died on the same day? And what was the day and the year? And of course, who were the 2 presidents? And I'll bet you a lot of you can answer that, although maybe not the year. So Cindy, I'm just wondering, would it be helpful to have people kind of shout out the answer and unmuted? Or do you think that's going to be disruptive? You are the mistress of ceremony, love.
I don't think that's disruptive. I think that's a good idea.
All right, if any of you want to unmute yourselves at any rate and tell, but you have to do the 2 presidents and the date and the year. So is anybody up for that?
Yes.
Okay.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson on July 4th, 1826.
Oh no, you're here. Oh, geez. I'm not frozen, but you all are. So talk about being kept in suspenders. We don't get the last. Thomas, give us the last thing, the year.
1826.
You could be in Mensa, man. So again, people are hearing me because, did they just unfreeze? Yes, they did. Right, so here's the story.
Richard, can you hear me?
What happened is that, believe it or not, in those days, the guy who came out second became the vice president to the first. Imagine a Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton ticket or administration these days, but it would be that. So, but, you know, they served together. And at the end of the term, Jefferson turned around and ran against his president, he being vice president, or having been, and defeated him. So they realized that this wasn't a good idea, that you would have people running, you instead would have people running for both. So many, many years later, as Thomas has pointed out, we now get to July 3rd, 1826, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration, coming up on the 50th Independence Day. And Jefferson lies dying in Monticello, his estate in Virginia. And as he begins to lose consciousness, all right, I'm getting that internet thing, but you can hear me because that label keeps coming up. But Cindy, you'll let me know if things are
You're good.
hard. Gosh, I hope so. And I hope the show is too, Cindy. So at any rate, and as he begins to blank out and lose consciousness, he turns to his grandson-in-law, married to his granddaughter, Nicholas Tristan, attorney, his confidant, and says, "Is it the glorious 4th of July?" And Tris says, to humor the old man, the lion in winter, "Yes, grandfather, it is." Jefferson loses consciousness, but lingers into the next day, July 4th, and passes away at about 1 p.m. Meanwhile, John Quincy Adams is dying, shuffling off his mortal coil, and about to travel to that undiscovered journey to that undiscovered country from which no traveler returns. You can guess I am just such a huge bardolater, meaning Shakespeare lover. Anything on Shakespeare you want to know, email me and I'll send you material on it. And but he, at 90 years and 8 months, by the way, a man born in 1735, and he's alive on the 4th and conscious enough to see and hear the exploding of the celebratory fireworks. And at 7 p.m., he does shuffle off his mortal coil and die. And his famous last words, anybody but Thomas on this? Okay, the famous last words are, "Jefferson survives. He was wrong. He lived, 6 hours longer, at least in that situation. Actually, a number of years longer. And that is the story." Okay, and of course he was wrong in those last words. Jefferson had not survived. But heck, not only didn't they have computers, they didn't have telephones, they didn't have Morse code. There was no way to know. And so far, Cindy, I'm glad it's going well because you all are absolutely frozen. So I can't see any reaction to you, but at least it's working. So we're going to do it this way.
Good.
Who was our youngest president? This is a central bar bet. Our youngest president. And again, because you're frozen and I can't see, I am betting that quite the majority of you, although you're Mensa, so I could be wrong, okay, said John F. Kennedy. And you would you would lose the bar bet because he is not. John F. Kennedy, 43 years and 7 months, got to be our youngest president. Come on, the average entering president is 54 and a half. So he's more than a decade younger. Young-looking, attractive wife, Jacqueline. Very young children for a president. And that would be Caroline and John. And, and incidentally, a lot of people don't know there was a third child in the oven, Patrick, but he was stillborn in the oven, as they're becoming the first couple. But he is not the youngest, and I'm going to show you the youngest here. Might surprise you. It's this guy, the bottom right. Bottom right. 42 and 10 months when he became president. He became president because very early on in his president's second term, and that would be William McKinley coming right before Theodore Roosevelt. And Theodore, just in for a very short time as vice president, McKinley was assassinated by a nutcase, disenchanted, angry office seeker who wanted, I don't know, the ambassadorship to Paris, and shot him with 2 bullets. And that's another interesting story about death by doctors called iatrogenesis. Uh-oh. Hey, Cindy, can you hear me on the phone?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Right, because what's happened here is now I'm just getting connecting, but if it's no problem, I'm getting the kind of toilet flush symbol. All right.
We lost the screen.
We're not seeing your slideshow anymore, though.
Yep.
Try this. How about now? Can you see?
No.
Oh, no. All right, now we're going to do this. The whole thing, all right, how do I get to you? Meaning what happened is the earlier image, 3:40 p.m., Saturday, October 3rd. Do I hit join? I have to say,
Can you hear me?
I can sort of hear you. One of the
All
great
right.
privileges in life is the
If
opportunity
you
to fail.
shrink the entire Zoom screen, just so minimize it,
Is
so
this the less talking?
then you should be able to see the regular computer controls and find your PowerPoint so you can send it to Cindy.
You're going to need to hit the escape. key to do
Unfortunately, I
that.
can't understand what she's saying. I think it's Celeste Turkin speaking. But, all right, can I ask you this right now? You all can hear me and see me fine, right?
We can hear you.
Then what I suggest, can you make my image bigger? And if not, we're going to go with what we have. All right, shall we just go with what we have now, Cindy and Celeste? Yes, and maybe
No problems with that.
hear me? All
I
right,
made
can
you
everybody
bigger.
hear me fairly clearly?
We can make you a speaker view. Go ahead to the buttons to the top and select on his button and say pin, and you'll be able to see him really big.
All right, is that something I'm supposed to do, or shall
Nope,
we just?
not you, sir. Everybody else will need to go ahead and
All right.
select on your video and say pin, and then you'll be at
Okay,
the
let me get my
top
notes.
of our videos.
This will be okay. It's going to be okay. And as I've said, if you didn't hear, one of the great things in life is the opportunity to fail. And I'm doing very well at it now. Okay. So the point of the last one is that John Fitzgerald Kennedy is our youngest elected president, but not our youngest president, because T. Roosevelt wasn't elected for that first term. Wait a minute. Now, the images came up. Let me just give it a try. But then it says connecting. And now it goes back to the other. Okay. But you all can hear me and see me fine. So, at any rate, so it's a great bar bet. You can hear me, right? Cindy, give me a
Yes.
nod. Okay,
You're
good. So, yeah. So there's the point of that Roosevelt was not elected. He came in so young, 42 and 10 months. That's about 9 months younger than Kennedy, that when he left after his second term, he was still only in his 50s. Now, the next thing is going to really hurt by not having an image, but so it goes. But it's worth doing it anyway. So Barbet from Paris, Parisa, Hamis, something. Parisa. Okay, so here's the point. My next slide was the very famous teddy bear slide, and I'll tell you the story. And that is that Roosevelt, and it is Roosevelt, it means field of roses. My wife's Dutch, she knows those things, but I knew that before. So he had so many firsts. The first Nobel Prize winner, Peace Prize, I think it was he intervened with the Russo-Japanese War. The first to leave the country during his presidency, he went to Panama, on and on. And he was also the first to invite an African-American family to the White House. And it was the family of Booker T. Washington, the founder and first president of Tuskegee Institute and the conservative political leader of many African Americans, an advisor to a number of Republican presidents. And this was in November. No problem. Whoever wrote me, Robert. No, Schindler's List here at the bottom. He's never heard that before. So at any rate, that didn't sit well in the South, and to mend some political fences, and you can look up this cartoon at some point. Roosevelt went down to Smedes, Mississippi, capital S-M-E-D-E-S, to mend some political fences. And while he was there, his host said, "Would you like to go hunting?" And in those days, OMG, everybody went hunting. Big game. The American buffalo, really a bison, they were the largest mammalian herds in the world, and then were decimated almost to extinction in just for hunting and shoot the animal, and not for their meat, but for their hides. And at any rate, he said, sure, he thought he would look good. So they go out to the field, and his hosts capture a little bear cub, and it would be in this cartoon, and I just don't have a picture of it to show you. And and the guy roped it to a tree. They put a gun into the president's hands. This is November 15th, 1902, and said, shoot the bear. And Roosevelt refused. He turned his back and he said, if I did that, I couldn't look my 4 sons in the eye. He refused. And 2 days later, in the Washington Post, came out a cartoon by Clifford Berryman, signature, by the way, completely unreadable. Now, this is interesting. Cindy is not frozen. Cindy, move. Nope, you are frozen. Darn it, you were moving for a while. And the caption read, drawing the line in Mississippi, because it was reputedly a territorial line between Mississippi and Louisiana. And there it was, with Roosevelt just saying no, and an anatomically incorrect left arm. No. Well, that went viral across the nation in the way that something would in 1902. And now the story switches quickly here to Brooklyn, New York, and a Jewish immigrant couple, Rose and Morris Michtom, capital M-I-C-H-T-O-M. They ran a novelty store with all sorts of gewgaws and tchotchkes, including, let me just see. Okay, Thomas, I'll get to that right after. Very good. Let me just get my wits about me. Refreshments, liquid and otherwise, toys, and stuffed animals. So they wrote a letter to President Roosevelt. Would you consider letting us manufacture a stuffed bear and naming it after you with the name Teddy's Bear? Notice the apostrophe S, what we call genitive possessive. He wrote back and said, I don't know what my name will do for the bear business, but go ahead. And it did a lot for the bear business. They had to hire just ginormous, requests, and they had to hire an extra seamstresses. It led to the founding of the Ideal Toy Corporation, which lasted for more than a century. And there was Teddy's Bear. In 1904, Theodore used it as his election symbol because he hadn't run for president the 4 years before. And in 1906, Teddy's Bear became enshrined in the dictionary, Teddy's apostrophe, but S then, but that's been dropped, but of course it's still in the dictionary. Now that you know our youngest president, all right, Thomas, real quickly, I had mentioned about decimating. And there's a nice lesson here, so I'm going to address Thomas's question. What a word originally means etymologically does not mean that it needs that today. Quarantine, to take a number, was 40 days. A long story, a very interesting history on that, and very sexist. Basically, that a widow had 40 days to move out of a home left when her husband died. But it doesn't mean 40 now. It just means a certain period when you're quarantined that doesn't have anything to do with the number 4. Manufacture, most goods are not handmade, manus factus. And similarly with decimate, it originally meant the nasty habit of the Romans of how they would punish the mutineers and captives by cutting off or hands or killing them 1 out of 10. So to decimate meant 1 out of 10. And I think that Thomas was asking when you said decimate the animals, what, 1 out of 10? Is that really that bad? And the answer is yeah, because it means much more now. If you say the gypsy moth caterpillars decimated the trees in my backyard, you mean more than 1 out of 10. So you can't go overboard with etymologies holding forever. They often change. I'll be happy anybody who wants to send you my examples of that. Now that you know our youngest president, and that was TR, unless you said youngest elected president, then it would be JFK. Interesting, two who used initials, and Theodore was the first president to be known by his initials by many people. Who is our oldest president? Now, to do that, there are 2 ways that we have oldest presidents. Let's start with the first way. The first way was would be who is our youngest president to enter the Oval Office, not with the intent of stealing a pen. What's interesting here, Cindy, is some of you are moving very slowly, and others of you are absolutely frozen. It's bizarre. At any rate, who is our oldest president to enter the Oval Office? Now, all I can do is guess here. I would say, I think most of you would say our oldest president entering the Oval Office was Ronald Reagan. And you would be wrong. Oh, now wait a minute. What happened here? My slideshow came up. And it's connecting. Wait a minute. Nope, we're back. All right. So I think the Russians are doing this. So at any rate, most of you would have said Ronald Reagan. And you would have been right, but not recently. Ronald Reagan entered the Oval Office at 69 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks, just short of 70. And more remarkably, he left office 8 full years later, 2 weeks short of 78. What's remarkable is that the only other president back then to have been 70 in office was Dwight D. Eisenhower, the last 10 months of his second administration, second term. So quite amazing. But since then, and I have slides here, but okay. Since then, Reagan is superseded by a fellow named Donald Trump. Is our oldest man. I know quite something because the man is so energetic, but he turned 70 in June before the inauguration in January 20th in 2017. And so he was just about 70 years and 8 months. And should he not be reelected and Joe Biden gets reelected, well, Joe Biden is even older and would be entering, I think it's 79, maybe 78. I'd have to look at my figure. And somebody can maybe call that out. But the answer is at let me look here. Yeah, he was born November 20th, 1942. So he'd be entering at 78. And this is the point. Modern medicine is amazingly modern. And part of it is the longevity. My parents were born, believe it or not, because I'm an old guy, in 1894 and 1899. And when they were born, the lifespan was 46 and a half. And now look at the age. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. She turned 69 in October, just before the election, and he had turned 70 quite before. And the average age is 54 and a half. So the top two candidates would tend to be 109. And here these folks were 70 and 69, 139. I mean, amazing. And, well, you see the candidates. Now you put together Trump and Biden, and it's amazing. You almost get 160 years old. Now, the other way is, which president lived the longest? That's another way of saying who was our oldest president. And you might say Reagan, who lived to 93 and 4 months, but he was superseded very quickly by Gerald R. Ford, the only president born a king. He was born Leslie Lynch King. But then he took his stepfather, who married his divorced mother, and became Gerald Rudolph Ford Jr. So a month and a half older. And then George H.W. Bush, born in 1924, but then Jimmy Carter, 3 months younger, who is still alive and by far the longest service as an ex-president, superseded Hoover by like a decade now, despite the brain cancer. So the answer would be Jimmy Carter. Now here's the best bar bet I can give you, everybody. Ready? Speaking of age, can you name 5 presidents of the United States who are not buried in the United States? Now, I'll tell you what you do. If you know...
Joe's alive today.
You only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you. Apologies to the other 8. I see 8 of you. Can you put up your hand if you think you know the answer? 5? No, you're all frozen, so you can't put up your hands. I'm going crazy, but at any rate, okay, so the question is 5 presidents of the United States not buried in or on American soil. The reason I say on is for those of you, and I don't think that's many of you, who remember Groucho Marx, You Bet Your Life, the quiz show, and the random couple, if they didn't win any money, Groucho would give them $50 each if they could tell who was buried in Grant's tomb. They'd say Grant and get the $50. But they were wrong. First of all, Julia Dent Grant, his widow, joined him in Grant's tomb 12 years later. And second, in a tomb, you're not buried in, you're buried on. So they were wrong all that time. So the 5 presidents of the United States, and I'd love to see the laughter in your faces, except you're frozen. 5 presidents of the U.S., you will win this bar bet like crazy, are, ready? And not buried in the U.S., Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, good, I'm hearing some laughter, Barack Obama, and Donald J. Trump. You'll agree that they were all presidents, and in one case are, of the United States, and that they are not buried in the United States.
It could be because they're alive.
Great bar bet. So I'm going to go a little bit longer with some facts, and then I'm going to do a little patterning from the succession of presidents, and then I'll close up and we'll be open for Q&A, I hope. But Cindy, if I can't hear anybody, ooh, God, that may do it, because I don't know what we're going to do. But maybe we can work it, and I'll hear questions on the telephone from them.
I think you'll hear questions.
Okay, tallest shortest, and fattest. And again, you would see them up there, but, you know, what can we do? Tallest is Abraham Lincoln, 6'4", at a time when the average Civil War soldier was 5'6". And a lot of people think it was Marfan syndrome. And you may have heard of that, and it's characterized by preternatural height. And as I say, he was almost a foot taller than the average person. No, Parisa, I'm afraid not, and you'll find out very shortly. Preternaturally large hands and feet, sallow complexion, exaggerated cheekbones, but we have no biological proof that he had Marfan syndrome. And usually people who have that die earlier than Lincoln did, and of course Lincoln died from assassination. The shortest, and a much harder question, is 5'4" James Madison. 5'4", our shortest. We have a number of 5'6" presidents, but only one 5'4". In terms of Lincoln, I'm sorry. A reporter for the New York Herald, boy, could they write back then, described Lincoln as, Lincoln is the leanest, lankiest, most ungainly mass of legs, arms, and hatchet face ever strung upon a single frame. He has most unwarrantably abused the privilege which all politicians have of being ugly. Boy, could they write. So the shortest is Madison, and Washington Irving, a pretty famous writer, and I think our first professional writer in America, called him but nothing but a withered little apple John. But another observer said he had never seen so much mind in so little matter. And he was probably our only president who had an IQ that weighed less than his IQ. He weighed only 100 pounds. This is complete extrapolation. The ideal IQ for a leader is between 119 and 121. Madison was 141, Wilson 145, Carter 145, Clinton 148, Kennedy 150, Jefferson 153, and this is hard to believe, this is extrapolated, John Quincy Adams 169. That's higher than Einstein's IQ, which was around 162. And none of this very reliable, of course. So he was the shortest, father of the Constitution, but despite his compactness, married to Dolly Madison, who ruled the social roost in D.C. for decades, dressed in exotic garb, dresses, swag. Can you still hear me? Because the phone went a little blank. Thank you. Turbans, this and that. And, quite a lady. Also, she was the one that rescued the Gilbert Stuart portrait of George Washington during the fires from the War of 1812 and the bombing, the shell, by England. Now, our fattest and a very interesting guy, and somebody did get it there, William Howard Taft. During his 6 feet, 300 to 340 pounds during his presidency, maybe in part because he ate a lot and he didn't like being president, still described as a graceful tennis player and dancer, and lost 80 pounds after his term and never put it back on. But a really interesting guy in that in the election of 1912, you probably know the story, Theodore Roosevelt decided 2 terms weren't enough for him. He came back, tried to wrest WR, the Republican nomination, but lost it to Taft, the incumbent. So it was a 3-way race, Woodrow Wilson, William Howard Taft, Theodore Roosevelt. And what happened is Theodore split the Republican vote, and as a result, Wilson won with a plurality of 48. Get this, TR 28, and Taft, the incumbent becoming recumbent, 22. So the best showing by far by a third-party candidate in history, and he actually got more votes than the incumbent president. But always good-natured, Taft says, I have just been elected ex-president by the largest vote in history. One other thing about Taft, when he was out of office, he was appointed in 1920 Chief Justice of the Supreme Court by Warren Gamaliel Harding in 1920. He swore in both Coolidge and Hoover, so he is the only man, and I expect forevermore, who knows, who headed up two branches of government, obviously the executive and the judicial, and you can't really head up, it's impossible to be the head of the legislative because of the bicameral government that we have. So I thought you'd enjoy that. Stay with me because I'm very near the end. I have a big thing on OK, it's presidential, but if you don't see the visual, it won't work. But you can ask me for anything from this, including the teddy bear, or Teddy's bear, and including the story of OK. I'll send you any part of this that you want. So I want to close, and I will close since I have the telephone, with two patterns that may not work fully unless, and maybe you want to on your computer, if you just want to dial up order of the presidents of the United States, I'm sure you could do that easily. I don't know if you can do that while you're on. But two patterns that may say something about who is elected in, well, just about a month from now. Pattern number one. 7 of our first 10 presidents were Virginians, and Virginia known as the birthplace of presidents. So from Washington, number 1, to John Tyler, number 10, 7 of the 10 were Virginians, and excluding Andrew Jackson from the Carolinas, and father-son, our second and sixth president, Adams, is from Massachusetts. All the other 7 were Virginians, and Zachary Taylor, our 12th president, was a Virginian, so it's 8 out of the first 12. Numbers 3, 4, and 5, that's Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. They were all Virginians, and they all served 2 full terms. Jefferson 2, 8 years, followed by Madison 2, 8 years, followed by Monroe 2. So 8, 8, and 8, 24 years. From Cindy, yeah, everyone. That's right. But why did you do that? I said it. Did they not hear me, Cindy?
No, I'm sure
No.
they're hearing you, but it reinforces the point.
That's very nice. Oh, anything like that. You're terrific. Okay, so 24 years, 8.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Lost his sound again.
He's gone.
So even the phone didn't keep him there permanently, huh?
Jesus.
We can see him, but it looks like his phone died.
That was my
And if he didn't have that background picture of the Oval Office, it wouldn't use as much bandwidth as he's been using.
Yeah.
Honestly, the background picture isn't going to
Calling
be
him back.
bandwidth. The
Yeah.
bigger bandwidth would be us having
I
our
hope not
videos
the
on.
fires
Okay,
raging around
Richard,
your old.
Richard, can you turn off your virtual background? Because that's consuming a lot of bandwidth too. Do you know how to do that?
The better option is for all of us to turn
that is
our videos off.
Maybe we could
If
have
we
done
turn
that.
our videos off, it'll help with his bandwidth.
But you're telling me that background does use bandwidth.
Correct.
So
Modest.
you think If I took it off the back, would that help or not? If I took it out of, if I just picked it up off the chair, Cindy, would that help? Can't
I
hurt.
don't think so. I think you need to.
Well,
Turn on-
we're at toward the end, right? He's going to do the two.
Yeah, let's carry on. We were doing pretty good there.
I think we were. All right. So let me just think where I was. Yes. Okay. So 3 presidents way back in the early 19th century who served a total of each of 8 years, 24 years, and a total of 6 terms. It's happened only one other time in American history. This is my penultimate bar bet. I've had to leave some out. Can you name the presidents? 2, 2, and 2. So that's not going to be Franklin Roosevelt, who served 4, although not much of the 4. Truman finished that term. Good. It sounds like, although I've lost now pictures of Celeste and Daniel, but so it goes. Okay. So can you tell me who those 3 presidents were? This is a wonderful bar bet.
I have a question. What is, I left off when you were talking about Virginia. Is this related to Virginia?
No, who served 2 terms in a row. So, what I was saying was that our 3rd, 4th, and 5th president, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, each served 2 full terms for a total of 24 years. That is 3 consecutive presidents serving double terms. Can you name another 3, and it's happened only once in American history, that did that? Okay?
And you said
it was
but you said
another 3 presidents who served 2, 2, and 2. That's my question.
Okay, but it had to be in the 19th century or no?
No, I just said since then.
Okay, I thought I heard you say 19th century. Okay.
Okay, so here's the answer, folks. It's a good one. And remember, I wouldn't give you something impossible. The answer is our presidents. Clinton, and I don't have my chart up. Clinton, Bush, Obama. They each served 2 terms. But that's only the 2nd time that's happened. But I figured those presidents are pretty recent, so you had a good shot there. But that's a good bar bet. Now, again, I'm sorry not to have the chart up, but you'll have to trust me on this. So that would indicate that Donald Trump would not be elected for another term, because that would make 4, and that's never happened. But a much larger pattern, and then I'm going to have one more bar bet, and then I want to tell you about the books, and thank you for staying with me. 123 years. Now, Menson's love patterns, and 123 years we have had a remarkable pattern that is hardly ever commented on. And the pattern is this: for well more than a century and almost a century and a quarter, get this now, the party in power stays in power for at least a 2nd term, if not more. The party, capital P, capital A, capital RTY, Democratic or Republican, stays in power. Oh, great. Now I feel like Van Gogh. My ear is cut off there. Stays in power for at least a 2nd term, meaning it is exceedingly difficult to dislodge the party in power. So you're just going to have to trust me on this. And actually, no, I think what I'm going to do is let me get back to my chart here if I can find it. Just a sec. No, I'm wrong. I don't have the chart printed out, but I don't need it. Okay. McKinley was a Republican elected in 1897. Serves 1 term, just starts his 2nd term when he's assassinated. Succeeded by Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt then finishes a 2nd term, followed by William Howard Taft. That's 4 Republicans. 3 different guys, but the party stays in power for 4. Then, as I mentioned, with the Bull Moose Party, Theodore Roosevelt runs against Taft, whom he basically appointed as his successor, okay, against Taft, and splits the Republican Party, and we get Wilson. So we get 2 terms of Wilson, and that, my friends, would be the only Democrat in 36 years. It was a very Republican nation back then. So then Wilson is followed by Harding, who dies of food poisoning, who's followed by Coolidge, who's followed by Hoover. So that is 3 terms of Republicans. Then, most spectacularly, we then get Hoover followed by FDR for 4 terms. The last term is completed by Truman, who gets his own term. That's 20 years of Democrats. But notice the party in power stays in power. I hope I'm being clear. After Roosevelt, Eisenhower, okay, that's 2 terms of Republicans, happens to be the same guy, followed by Kennedy, who was assassinated, and followed by Johnson, and that's 2 terms of Democrats, followed by followed by Nixon, and who is succeeded by Ford, and of course the only president that voluntarily had to leave office. So that is 2 terms, counting Nixon and Ford. Followed by Carter, 1 term and the exceptions. Not only 1 term, but preceded by a Republican, Ford, and succeeded by a Republican, Reagan. So that's the one exception. Then after Carter, we have Reagan, Bush. You say, well, wait a minute, H.W. Bush had only 1 term. Yeah, but it was 3 Republican terms. Reagan, Bush, okay? And then followed by, as I mentioned, Clinton, 2 terms for Democrats, Bush, 2 terms for Bush Jr., and then Obama, 2 terms. So that would point to Donald Trump getting reelected, because after all, we have a Republican president, and by that pattern, he should at least get a 2nd term, or maybe it'll be another Republican, not that I wish that on anyone. So that is the partnership. Okay, so here we go. Cindy et al., and thanks for your patience, Cindy, really very impressive, and ingenuity. And that's interesting about the green screen, and we will try that out, because I've got another Zoom tomorrow with Orange County. Okay, my last bar bet, and then I'm just going to close with a closing statement. And then I would like to tell you a little about the books, because I can't just push a button and get them up. What member of Mensa is the parent of a daughter who was fired on national television by a president of the United States? There is a current member of Mensa who was fired on national television by an American president. And of course, I'm going to give you the answer because you can't shout it out, unfortunately. So here's the answer.
I want to guess.
Well, I'm hearing a voice, Cindy. I don't know if it's yours or somebody.
We can turn our audio on, so Parisa wants to try to answer.
All right, Teresa, wherever you are. Go ahead, Teresa. What's the answer?
But I looked it up in the bulletin, so does that count?
Yeah, but I have it in the bulletin, righto. And Teresa, tell them who it is.
It's you. Your daughter was on the Celebrity Apprentice.
Notice I don't say it's me, I say 'tis I. It's like there's a knocking at the gates of heaven, and St. Peter calls out, who's there? And a voice says, it is I. And St. Peter says, oh, goody, another English teacher, come right in. But it is I, my daughter Annie Duke, in 2009, on Celebrity Apprentice. I think that was the second year, I'm pretty sure, that it had gone from The Apprentice to Celebrity Apprentice, because she was at that time the winningest woman in poker history, was selected to be a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice. And as you know, I think they start with 16 and ultimately 14 get fired and there are 2 finalists. And that's what happened here. 14 people fired, including the American ambassador to North Korea, Dennis Rodman, and down to Annie Duke, my daughter, and Joan Rivers. And Donald and Simona and I are in the audience here in New York, not here. And Donald fires Annie in favor of Joan Rivers. So that's the story, and obviously a very important vehicle for President Trump to become President Trump. So I'm going to close here, and then I'm going to just go. I have to get a prop because, and thank you all so much. And again, Cindy, I am staying as long as it works here for people,
Okay.
even though we have to do it by phone.
Richard, thank you so much for persevering throughout all the technological challenges that we had tonight. and we're down to 12 participants, and I will keep this open as long as the 12 people, including you and I, so that makes another 10, have questions they would like to ask you. So I'll just keep it open.
Good. And that's you, Cindy, speaking, because I don't see your lips moving.
Yes.
That's you, Cindy.
Yes, that's me speaking.
Well, we've had a real experience, and I'm not sure we can get this fixed tomorrow, but maybe if we don't use the green screen, we'll be okay. So here we go.
I would like to say that it's been a while, so perhaps we need a 2 or 3 minute biological break for everybody. And
okay, yeah, because you're right. You arrived at that by a process of elimination, and I don't want to be sued for defecation of character. So I so bear with me just for another half hour. Kidding.
Yeah.
Richard,
and thank
this is the last.
Tufo, I think that is.
Yeah.
Looks like Tufo. Okay.
So everybody that wants to continue to talk to Richard, hang in there. I'm going to take a biological break because I need to, and I will be back in a New York.
And it'll just take about a minute and a half, and I'll finish this part.
Okay.
Wow, what an adventure! But as I say, one of the okay, there's somebody. When George Washington was elected president in 1789, other world leaders included the King of France, the Tsarina of Russia, the Emperor of China, and the Shogun of Japan. Today, there is no King of France. There is no Tsar of Russia, although you might disagree with me on that one. There is no Emperor of China and no Shogun of Japan, but the office of President of the United States endures and prevails. So what I'm going to do is, Cindy, I'll be away just for a bit. I want to get the books to show because we've lost the slides. I may take a quick visit to the bathroom too, and we can have a wonderful time as a small group of Mensans, particularly if you ask me about language, although I'm okay about presidents, but language is my sweet spot. So you're right on the biology. So Cindy, shall I leave the phone on?
Yes.
Or yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is status quo. I'm actually going to stop the recording now so that Q&A doesn't,
Richard, you might want to put your phone on the charger.
Yes, make sure your phone continues to charge. So stopping the recording.
Oh, I think it is.